Okay, so let's just jump right into it. The game has been out for a couple of months now, and it's been a little bit since I've been kind of actively playing the game. And whether you stopped playing New World a couple of months ago or not, you may have heard of some changes that were coming to PvP that a lot of people in the community, including myself, were really excited about. You saw a lot of people posting videos about it, and then pretty much no one was really playing the game for about another 2 months. And the changes that I'm referring to are the February update patch, which was essentially a couple of input and animation changes that added a priority queue. So things like dodges and abilities had a higher priority over things like light attacks. So it just made it, in theory, combat a lot less clunky because you could cancel out of super long animations of things that had lower priority like a light attack into a dodge roll to kind of make combat a lot more smooth and fun to play. Now, while I say in theory, the issue that kind of popped up was once the February update was released, there was a ton of issues with the patch. There essentially added another desync bug where combat just felt terrible to play in general. But on top of that, even when it didn't feel all too bad to play, they kind of messed up the priority. So things like abilities didn't have priority over light attacks, so you still couldn't really cancel the things that you would really want to, and combat still didn't really feel smooth. But we kind of had that once the February patch came out, and then it took them pretty much a whole another month to fix all of those changes. And we are now here at the March update, and that's kind of why, at least myself, I haven't been playing the game that much because the just hasn't really been fun, to be honest. But the March update is finally here, and it seems like they have fixed a lot of the issues that have cropped up from the February update, and the game is definitely a lot more fun. In addition to those core changes that have really helped PvP out in the long run for the game, pretty much every single weapon has gotten some kind of change over these past 2 months. The Rapier is a weapon that I have been keeping my eye on pretty carefully. If you've been following the channel for pretty much any amount of time, you know that it is definitely my favorite weapon in the game to use by far. And they had gone and made a couple of changes that tried to make the weapon feel a lot less overpowered when it came to escaping. It was pretty much in a state to where you essentially didn't have to even think about optimizing your damage or your gear for the weapon. With the abilities that it has, such as Flesh and Evade and Parry, it made it to where you could pretty much run the Rapier as your back weapon, assuming you're running, like, let's say, a Life Staff, a bow, or a musket build, and pretty much not have to think about the weapon except for when you're escaping. You just switch, either use a parry to just stop everyone around you, and then just do a quick evade and flichet out. The longer kind of drawn out chases or escapes, even the Rapier favored that because evade has such a short cooldown. And I think they raised the cooldown on Flesh as well. So I was honestly a little bit worried that they were gonna make the weapon not unusable, but just not the way that I liked it or the way that I was able to have fun with the weapon. And thankfully, they didn't go and nerf it into the ground. They actually surprisingly made the exact changes that you would want to make to make the weapon feel less OP when it comes to escaping, but also maintaining the integrity that makes the Rapier the Rapier. One of the big things was evade. Once I saw the cooldown go from 6 to 12 seconds, I was kind of worried that you were going to be able to do the evade kind of that infinite combo where if you can get into a light attack chain, you can just constantly reset and cast back-to-back evades. And that is still intact because they just increased the amount that you reduce the cooldown of it with each light attack. So I think previously it might have been like 10%, but now it's 20%. Whatever the values were, they made it in line to where it's still 3 light attacks to be able to reset the ability fully. and that was a huge source of damage for the Rapier, but also its identity. That evade infinite combo is pretty much what allowed you to have enough damage to not only make the weapon viable outside of just getting parries into backstabs, but it also opened up the option of using other abilities such as flourish and finish, because you still have the damage from evade to kind of um, go back to if a lot of your other abilities whiff. Fire Staff has got a lot of love as well. It got quite a few buffs, and it pretty much feels in line back to where it was, without it feeling too insane. Although I have seen a couple of full intelligence mages hit quite hard with the weapon, but for the most part, I don't feel like it's kind of a terror as it was before. And on top of that, Ice Gauntlet, it's kind of strange. They went and made it to where you couldn't just go around one-shotting people with Ice Spike anymore because of the way that these spikes kind of shoot out of the ability, which hurt a lot of builds, but honestly it didn't really hurt mine because the way I like to use Ice Spike is to just get that chill debuff and get a stagger to switch into my Rapier. But Ice Shower definitely feels very, very, very strong. Pretty much if you get caught into an Ice Shower and you don't have a immediate escape, or an ice block really is your only option, you're going to die because you can't use dodges, you can't use abilities for it seems like 5 to 6 seconds. So that ability I feel like does need some tuning, but overall the builds that I like to use are still intact and are fun to use. But like I mentioned, almost every single weapon has gotten some changes, and every build feels really, really strong. So kind of gone are the days of running around with kind of those one of three builds, and if people were not running kind of great axe, full mage, rapier and bow, or like rapier and musket, kind of didn't really need to worry about their damage. Everything has damage now. Spear feels a lot better. Void Gauntlet is more in line, but it still has the threat that it has. Great Axe, Hammer, especially Hammer. If you get caught into a hammer chain and you don't have an escape, or you've kind of exhausted your stamina, then you're probably gonna die from that chain, which is really, really scary and also like good to see, because honestly, I didn't fear hammers at all before, which really wasn't good for the game. So every weapon feels good, which makes a lot more builds viable. On top of that, the game has been out for long enough now to where a lot of people have gotten better at PvP. So it's kind of raised the overall kind of ceiling for PvP in the game, which makes it a lot more fun because you have to honestly focus on your build and your mechanics, because you can't just kind of put together a cheap build and get away with kind of those cheap wins, because like I said, every build is viable now. The Blunderbuss has been added as well, which is a very, very interesting weapon. But I actually kind of want to touch on it in a video on its own because there's quite a lot to talk about for it. But I am in the process of maxing out my Blunderbuss, and I will probably have a video out about that soon. But yeah, overall, I feel like PvP has kind of just had a hard reset and just feels way more fun and healthy to play. We're kind of in a dark place for a long time. Builds felt very stale, combat felt stale, a lot of things didn't work, but they have fixed almost every bug that was kind of conflicting PvP in like a major way. Like certain abilities and certain perks have all been fixed. A lot of builds are viable, like I said, so yeah, I'm really, really happy where the game is kind of sitting at right now. And on top of that as well, I'm probably not the person to talk about it because I'm more of a PvP player. But on the PvE side of things, not only has a new dungeon been added, but there's been a lot more perks that have gone into the loot pools, and rewards on certain things have been increased to where you actually get viable gear that you want for certain activities. So we're actually heading in a very, very good direction to where you can kind of do what they intended for you to do. play however you want and get rewards to be able to do the thing that you want. So, like I said, yeah, the game's in a very healthy place, and I think we're kind of in a place now for them to start working on content, and hopefully that comes soon. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the game, on where it's been, and where it's at currently. Once again, I do apologize for taking such a long break, but hopefully the game doesn't really experience any kind of crazy bugs that flip the game on its head, and we can kind of just keep playing and enjoying the game for the future. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.
Oh!